Now, as you heard in the news, large areas of Bull Island were left scorched by a fire on Monday. The area is home to 180 different bird species, and to find out how they've been affected by this, our reporter Jack Kane went to Bull Island with Birdwatch Ireland's Niall Hatch.
Well, there's quite a lot of burnt vegetation here. We're seeing a lot of burnt grass. It's sort of quite a narrow but very long strip. It looks maybe 3 or 4 kilometres from just beside the golf club building all the way down near Sutton. And we're seeing this marram grass in the coastal area growing in the sand dunes has been very badly burnt, and there's a bit of smell of burning in the air. And we're seeing a lot of birds like skylarks, birds like that would be nesting in this area or looking for nest sites. They've certainly been pushed out from this region. They're sort of staying around the edges rather than going into the middle of it.
What does it mean for the wildlife on Bull Island?
There's never a good time for something like this to happen, but if it was going to happen round now is probably the best time, because if it had been a month earlier, it would have caused great disturbance to all the wading birds that feed on the mudflats just in front of us here. If it was a month later, it would have destroyed the nests of all the ground nesting birds like the skylarks and the meadow pipits, and also the stonechats that nest in the gorse bushes. So around now it probably did the least damage it could have done. But as you can see, there's literally thousands of dead snails all around us in the middle of it, and that's part of the ecosystem food for birds as well. And certainly the skylarks do seem to be behaving a little bit in a distressed way. They're moving around the edge. Some of them will have lost their territories, but hopefully it'll regenerate. I think it could have been a lot worse. Yes, it's still a warning lesson for us all about what could happen, and if this happened a month later, it could have been a real wildlife disaster. The other thing that we're noticing as well is that it's quite easy to see these skylarks, because there's no longer any camouflage for them. So when they're quite a brown bird, they blend in very well with the grass. When they're in the unburnt grass, they're almost invisible. When they're walking around here in the black burnt stubble, they really stick out like sore thumbs, and so predators will find it easier to catch them. You've also seen with me here some of the rabbit burrows. We're seeing lots of rabbits have been doing digging around here just since the burn. There's lots of fresh spoil coming out of the holes, and that might be a sign that they're trying to find new homes for themselves. I'd say some of the bigger warren areas may have been badly affected, may have killed some rabbits, I'm not sure, but I think what's happening is they're moving more to the fringes and starting to dig there now instead. So there has been some disturbance, but I think that everything should recover ultimately.
Okay. You were saying earlier that we've been rather lucky in terms of the timing. Is there any way of preventing this in the future?
It's a very tricky thing to do, because the grass, even after a couple of hours in the sun, it dries out bone dry, and it's just like tinder, it goes up very quickly. I think that the onus is really on us human beings to make sure that we light fires in responsible ways. We don't light them in nature reserves such as this, and just to realise the consequences. It would seem that this was most likely a man-made fire, and I'm sure the people who started didn't intend for it to have such a consequence, but it did, and that's something we have to be very careful about. Any kind of fire or flame, or even a cigarette butt in a sand dune system like this with the marram grass on it, that could just go up very quickly. And I think it's just lucky the wind was blowing the way it was. It could very easily have gone towards the golf course clubhouse, or it could have gone down towards the interpretive centre, and it's just a blessing that people weren't injured.
In addition to the fire in Bull Island, birds have already been having a tough time of it lately in Dublin. The coldest January in recent memory and erratic weather this spring have played havoc with birds' migrating and nesting patterns, particularly the swallow. I asked Niall whether Birdwatch Ireland should be concerned.
Yes, one of the big things that we do in Birdwatch Ireland is that we monitor the arrival of swallows and other migrants that are coming to us from Africa. The early arrival dates are important, but actually what's more important is when the bulk of the birds arrive, because there's always a few early pioneers that will come before the others, but when we see the bulk of the birds arriving, that's the most important. So this peak arrival date is what we're looking for. Of course, we had another cold spell back in January when the weather was viciously cold, and that affected a lot of our resident and wintering birds. And we're just compiling the data at the moment from our garden bird survey, which is something that everyone else can help us with the following winter. The website, you can get all the details on the surveys at birdwatchireland.ie, and we're expecting that will show us some declines from January onwards in the very small birds that come into gardens, particularly birds like wrens, goldcrests, long-tailed tits. They're really small-bodied birds. They find it very, very hard indeed to survive in cold weather. The small birds, I think the cold weather's hit them very badly this year.
That was Niall Hatch of Birdwatch Ireland ending Jack Kane's report.